Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Jo Wheatley, and my friend and co-host Zoe Hawkins.
Hi, everybody. Great to be back with another episode. And this week we're talking about the different coaching approaches. What are they? And we'll tell you a little bit about them. And the reason we're doing this is because we cover a range of coaching approaches on our course, on our training courses. And obviously, many other providers cover different coaching approaches on theirs. And it's often confusing to know, well, what's different about one course to another? So we thought by spending some time talking about the different approaches to coaching will help you to make a confident decision to come and train with us as a coach, or certainly just to be aware of the different coaching approaches that are available to you.
I think an important place to start is by sharing our view, which is that we don't fully subscribe to any singular coaching approach. Our approach to learning is to learn as much as we can about different coaching approaches and to just discern for ourselves what resonates with us from the experience of being a coachee, and also in experimenting when we learn about these different approaches. What is it that we see that is particularly effective or can be particularly effective with our coaching clients? And for us, it's about building our toolkit out so that we are able to tailor our coaching to the client in front of us and their situation, who they are, and how they want to be in the world. And I think that knowing that there are a range of different coaching approaches is really exciting. It shows that coaching is multidimensional, and coaching, whilst it's new, relatively new as a profession, it has its roots in thousands and thousands of years ago. So it's got very deep roots, and where coaching is now is about being evidence-based, working from research, focusing on positive psychology. And there's also the opportunity to be disruptive with coaching. It's not all about the history and where it's come from. It's about taking what you learn from these approaches and also thinking about possibly doing your own evidence and developing your own approach to coaching too.
I think
So
there's Sorry, Joe. I think there's permission to play in coaching, isn't there? Like with all the different coaching approaches, they do provide structures and they provide a way to access information that you can impart and share with your clients through different activities. But ultimately, when our learners come to us, what we want for them by the end of the program is to have the confidence to be able to play and be creative with the different approaches that they take in coaching, drawing on what has been useful for them and for their clients from a range of different coaching approaches. I think when you stick with one particular approach, you can get real depth in a particular approach, and that can be great if you want to niche down in a specific area. But having breadth gives you choice around the type of coach that you want to be and the type of experience that you want to be able to give your clients. So we should probably start by defining what is a coaching approach, because for some people, they may be like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even know what that is. And a coaching approach, I suppose we could define as a particular field of coaching. So you may have heard of transaction analysis, you may have heard of neurolinguistic programming, Gestalt, emotional intelligence, cognitive behavioral coaching, positive psychology, neuroscience. These are all fields of coaching that I don't believe are singular in their approach. Like the more you learn about coaching and the different approaches, the more similarities that you begin to see between the approach. There's like overlap between some of these approaches. There's a familiarity the more that you learn. And our learners, when they come on our programs, often get into a point where they're like, oh my gosh, there's just so much to learn. But by the end of the program, they're able to see how these different approaches actually sit together, and they aren't as sort of singular standalone blocks that you need to learn. They are a philosophy, if you like, a way of being in coaching.
yeah, and in fact, when we cover emotional intelligence on our training, that's often an area people are like, oh, I want to do more on that. And that's the roots really for us in forming our emotions coaching practitioner training. Because when you do your initial coaching training or coaching qualification, there's so much to learn, as you were saying, Zoe. You're learning around all the different aspects of coaching, and so you can't go into the full level of depth in all of these different coaching methodologies. But what it does is it gives the learners just that insight. And we in our training, we give practical coaching tools from these different coaching methodologies. So we give an introduction to them and some practical tools, but also sometimes that's different methodologies spark different levels of interest. So we have some learners like, oh, I want to go on and do my NLP training now because I can see how that will complement my coaching training. And for other people, they feel more drawn to, as you were saying, like cognitive behavioral coaching or transactional analysis. And they'll go and do some specialist training to get a deeper understanding of those things. And for other people, it's enough. They've got enough of those things from our training, and they'll want to go on and do team coaching as a follow-on training or group coaching. So, again, that's the exciting thing about coaching, is you can really have your own journey within the CPD. But should we delve a little deeper into some of these individual coaching approaches?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the first ones that comes to mind for me is neurolinguistic programming. So we cover this, and we have a module on this in our program. And the reason why this one comes to mind is because neurolinguistic programming is essentially based on modeling. So as you were saying, Joe, like coaching is based in, in history, think an approach that's been around for thousands of years. And basically, how do you help people to achieve what they want to achieve? And in NLP is a study of success, essentially. So one person can do something. How do I break down the different strategies, thoughts, beliefs that enable that person to do that thing and create a model of excellence? So neurolinguistic programming is based in understanding, how does a client think? How do they perceive the world? And in doing so, helping your client to understand their own thoughts, beliefs, strategies, such that they can be more purposeful and conscious around how they use them to achieve what they want to achieve. Now, NLP goes further. So if you go and do your NLP practitioner or NLP master practitioner, you can get tools to help people to rewire their subconscious, which helps them to create rapid change. And there are elements of that in coaching, depending on what sort of coach you are and what you want to bring in. But in our coaching, we look at how do we help our clients, our coachees, to understand themselves, the way that they think, the different processes that are happening for them at any one particular time, such that they can use that to go and achieve their outcome. So that's ultimately a sort of summary of NLP.
There are NLP approaches kind of weaved through all of the content of our course, which is what people kind of discover or can start to see once we've done the NLP module. I think the NLP module helps to give coaches like an anchor set of beliefs about how they approach coaching conversations. It gives them very practical tools and ways of helping clients to understand what we call, or what in NLP is called, their model of the world. So how do they experience the world? What are the ways in which the client filters their experience of the world? And that can be really, really revealing for a client. And I think when people do training in NLP, it's like you can't, or even have coaching, it's like you can't then go back to seeing the world in the way you saw it before, without that knowledge that you have around how the brain works. So, there's a lot of science in NLP, really fascinating. And as you were saying, so there are different levels. You can go on and train to be an NLP practitioner or an NLP master practitioner, or even an NLP trainer. We decided we wanted to do practitioner and master practitioner, and we didn't want to specialize in being trainers in NLP as a specialism in its own right. But in our own coaching styles, there certainly are informed by some of the things that we covered in our NLP training.
Yeah.
The activities we use in NLP on the course, I often get strong reactions doing some mindset work, which is quite assertive. But there's a lot that our learners take away from the module on NLP.
It's a reframing module, that one, isn't it? Like, I think when you come to coaching, you haven't done any NLP, there are parts of the fundamentals of neurolinguistic programming that reframe the way that you may experience the world. So, for example, and you may have heard this in other areas, there is no failure, only feedback. Now, this is a firm principle of neurolinguistic programming, and it's about how do you see the world through that lens? What happens when you look at your situation or your challenge through the lens of there is no failure, only feedback? Like, what does that do? It's like many of these principles flip your view of the world, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And there's lots of those principles of NLP. And as you said, Jo, also the mindset. So piece around mindset coaching, which is a term you may have heard of, can have roots in neurolinguistic programming. So it's an extensive field that, as Jo said, is threaded through our program. And also we go into a deep dive on that in the program. And it's often a really popular and fascinating part of the program for people.
And the reframes around every behavior has a positive intent, like that, I think is still something that helps me in my personal life as well as my professional life as a coach, and can be really helpful for clients to consider, particularly if the clients come in because they've got a tension in a relationship, or perhaps they're particularly hard on themselves in the things that they're doing or the way that they're approaching it, and even ideas like reflecting on what are we distorting, what are we deleting, what are we generalizing when we are sharing our experiences with others. And as a coach, when we start to inquire into that with our clients, all of a sudden this picture or story they've been telling starts to change. And when that starts to change, different options emerge for them, or they see themselves differently in their story. So yeah, lots and lots of great stuff that's it's both simple and complex. I think all of the things that are covered in these different approaches to coaching. Transactional analysis is another field that we introduce people on our training to, and we introduce them to it because there are lots of powerful models, philosophies within transactional analysis, which is a theory of communication and also goes back into child development. And so, when you think about the phrases that we use in our everyday life, and we'll hear clients say, oh, I'm a perfectionist. Well, within transactional analysis, there is a model around drivers, almost like compulsions or inner narratives that we have related to the idea of okayness. So again, it can be very simple things to share, but very powerful. So the idea of drivers is related to, if you notice, for example, like a perfectionist narrative coming up into your brain, when we start to look at it through like the idea that an unconscious narrative is, I am only okay if I am perfect in this situation, or if things are perfect. But then also realize that actually, when we take a step back, in reality, I'm okay regardless of that. And so if I'm able to step into that energy, then what do I choose to do? And how do I experience the situation? But we share with you a number of what's called drivers. We cover things, a concept called ego states. Many of you might be familiar with this idea of parent, adult, child, sometimes referred to as a traffic light system. That can be really powerful to explore with clients, and we give our learners obviously resources around that and opportunities to practice tools and to get feedback. So we have about 4 different coaching activities that we share, as well as the context and the theory around transactional analysis.
And I think at this point in the program, you start to see the similarities. So NLP, as I described before, is like a 360 flip of the world on its head. And TA, transactional analysis, does the same thing. So look at the world through this lens. What are you able to see and experience when you access a different viewpoint? So another kind of powerful philosophy or approach, if you like. Another one that we look at, which we mentioned earlier, is emotional intelligence. And this is really an approach to help clients to tap into the intelligence that exists within their emotions. Obviously, the code is in the title, but it's not something that we or clients very easily do. We tend to experience emotions as a sensation, not as information or data. So on the program, when we introduce you to a number of different concepts through the lens of emotional intelligence, it's about helping clients to both identify their emotions, which can be hard for some people, and try to understand, how are they useful to me? Like, where's the value in this emotional experience? What learning can I gain from this emotional experience that's going to help me to move forward? For some clients, that's the emotions that they are having, and wanting to learn from them so those emotions can pass through. For other clients, it may be that there's a big gap in terms of they're not able to experience emotions and they want to be able to tap into more joy and more gratitude and more sense of achievement. And so there can be work to do there. So again, a number of activities that really help both learning coaches and obviously clients, when you're working with them, to really appreciate the value and intelligence that comes from emotions. And of course, that is a vast field that we've obviously gone on to share our passion about in the emotions coaching practitioner training.
Yeah, and our knowledge and our experience in these areas. And really, all coaching is about relationships. It's about a relationship with self. It's about our relationship with others. It's about our relationship to emotions, our relationship to the wider world. So all of these approaches are really designed to help us to consider our relationship to these things and support our clients to reflect on their relationship with other things, but also to be able to make progress, to be able to create change, to create options and energy for change, and a resourcefulness, a state of resourcefulness to engage in change.
Another approach that we build into the program is this piece around being person-centered. So we talk about the whole person on our program. So we often get asked, what type of coaching training is it? We were asked that loads when we recently went onto a retreat by people. And we had to sit and explain that, we don't believe there are types of coaching training. So you could go and train as a career coach, you could go and train as a health coach, but ultimately there is a bucket, if you like, that you need to achieve first in terms of coaching. And that for us is this person-centered approach where you're able to experience a person as a whole person. So you believe that somebody is whole and resourceful, and you are there to help to facilitate that person's goals and objectives. And once you have this kind of whole person-centered approach, you can add your specificities onto it. So you may go and do some CPD around a particular area. But I think this initial kind of coaching training really helps to embed the skills and competencies that are required. And person-centered for me is about the appreciation of the full experience that that person is having at any one particular time, and enabling them to understand that experience without judgment, without the need to sort of break that down or redirect. You're just really helping the person to understand who they are in that moment and what they want to achieve from it, by appreciating that everything about themselves in that world interrelates.
I think the purpose of like this kind of foundational coaching training is to stimulate a passion and an interest in the field. So it's learning so much and enough to equip you to go out there and coach in a high quality and an ethical way, which is obviously essential. But also to stimulate that passion and that curiosity to learn more, to find different avenues. There are lots of other approaches to coaching that we haven't mentioned on this podcast, and there isn't even probably time for me or to you or anybody to go out and explore all of them. So there are decisions that you have to make as a coach, after your initial training around the direction that you want to go in. And there's lots of ways to do that: reading, podcasts, videos, conferences, webinars, attending all sorts of different things. And also, more than anything, it's engaging with other people with curiosity. We can learn lots from each other. It doesn't need to be purely around these different these different areas. And, as I said at the beginning, there is the opportunity for coaching to be disrupted. It's being disrupted at the moment in lots of different ways. And that's exciting too. So thinking about how do you stay at the cutting edge? And when you are learning about different coaching philosophies, how do you bring a curiosity to that? And I think part of coaching training is learning to question the philosophies, not just offering questions to our clients. So in our approach to coaching, as we said right at the beginning, we don't fully subscribe to any of them. And so we encourage that curiosity, and that's confidence, actually, to question and be curious and to gain new insights and to test things out. So that's part of how you as an individual develop your own signature coaching style.
I think the final piece I would say on this, when you're looking at coaching training and you're exploring the different philosophies and what might you like to learn about, for me, it doesn't really matter at the front end which coaching philosophies you lean into, because all of the different philosophies ultimately teach you about yourself first and your clients second. So in order to show up for clients and to work with these different tools and concepts, you first need to be able to apply them to yourself. So the journey of becoming a coach is really a journey of self-awareness. And any of the different coaching philosophies, be it neuroscience, positive psychology, transactional analysis, NLP, or any other ones we've mentioned and not mentioned on this podcast, will take you on that journey of self-discovery. Because ultimately, when it comes to coaching, you are the tool that your clients get to experience. The different activities that you have, the worksheets, the approaches that you draw from, that's all decoration that comes after you have mastered the skills, the competencies, and the silencing of your own ego to be able to show up for your client.
So if you're interested in training to be a coach and you like the sound of doing a in-depth coaching qualification that's accredited with coaching bodies that covers a range of coaching approaches, take our quiz at mycoachingcourse.com, or you can visit our website where you can book on the courses, and that is www.igcompany.co.uk.